Good morning. It's 9 a.m. Monday, August 22nd, 2022. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I got a motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to approve claims dated August 22nd, 2022 in the amount of $696,229.20.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is items with County Sheriff Quinn Reese. Morning, Quinn. First is discussion and possible action to authorize a camera upgrade project at the Muscatine County Jail with a total projected cost of approximately $250,000.
Good morning. I believe a couple weeks ago, you guys went through the ARPA grant applications. You would have seen that request in there. Prior to filing that request, we've been meeting with JJ and Bill about just completely upgrading our system as it stands. We've been working on that for the last couple of years, and we've been replacing cameras as they fail. We replaced a batch about 6 months ago, but what we were looking at with that grant was to just complete that project, just once and for all, calling it done. Prior to filling out that paperwork, again, we met with Bill and Sherry and talked about filing for a grant. If that grant wasn't approved or accepted, our fallback was that we were just going to pay for it out of our commissary line item that we have. So that's what I'm asking for today.
The estimates that you have here on this, where did we get those from?
The estimate that we've got is from JJ. JJ handles all of our camera and surveillance system as it stands. We've got about 124 cameras, I believe, within the facility and around the facility. We've replaced about 49 of those with IP cameras. The remainder are the old analog type cameras, and those are the ones that are failing. Most of those are in and around the 96 portion of the jail, so they're probably original to the facility.
Then it looked like you're also, as a part of this, you're putting in a couple of pretty large video servers as well, correct?
Correct.
And
so
backup.
with some recent litigation that we've dealt with, there was some discussion on retainage. We've checked with a number of surrounding counties, similar size facilities, on what their retainage was, and we've implemented a policy that closely mimics those other facilities.
The county has used JJ for several years now on a number of different issues, and to my knowledge, they've done a very nice job. Am I correct?
So JJ handles the cameras within the facility. He handles all of our cameras out at the Park Avenue West facility. He handles all the cameras in both the admin building and the courthouse. When we call him, he answers. If he's out of state, his boy's here the next morning, if not that same day.
Yeah.
So I've got no qualms
Yeah.
about
He
JJ's
does a
work.
nice job.
And I think, as I recall back, we went through a competitive bid process prior to implementing cameras at a significant level, and he was far and away the best value for the taxpayer. And then now it's really about service, because we're kind of into what we are, and everything JJ uses, I believe, is not proprietary. It's all.
And he's quick to respond to your service calls, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
He and Bill get into some back and forth about technical stuff that I don't understand and I don't think Matt understands. So we just let them argue out the details of megabytes and little bytes and bigger bytes and all that jargon. So
There you go. Okay.
Well, I would move the approval.
I got a motion by Jeff, a second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to accept a proposal for a fire alarm replacement project at the Muscatine County Jail subject to negotiation and approval of mutually acceptable contract terms by the county attorney.
So this is part of the project that we discussed several months ago, kind of in concert with the door controls, lighting controls, with the accurate systems bid that was accepted. We've done a significant amount of legwork. Captain McClear's done a significant amount of legwork over the last several months with a couple different vendors, trying to figure out which one really meets our needs. There's been some discussions with Jim about language in the contract, some language that he didn't like, some other language that he thought would be appropriate in those contracts. Captain Cleary's gone back and forth with the two vendors that we've been dealing with the most, and they are open to negotiation on adding language, taking language out, so on and so forth. So what we're asking for is to move forward with not only getting an approved contract, but getting approval to enter into that contract and get that project lined up and on the books.
We just felt that rather than having Matt spend a bunch of time trying to negotiate terms that are okay with Jim for two different vendors, that it's time we just pick a vendor and then negotiate those terms one time only.
Right, and we had a pretty, thank you for the extensive documents. I read through those this weekend, and you know, looked like most of these vendors are proposing fairly open source type stuff that you know, everything has a bit of propriety in it, so you'll have that. But I asked the sheriff and Captain McCleary a couple of questions about some of them, you know, because if you looked at some of them were doing like a Honeywell system, and then there was a Potter Industries. I'm not familiar with Potter Industries, obviously. Honeywell is a long-known vendor in this type space, and so I think you have history in such there, and I think that's maybe an issue. I think the Honeywell system was, they're all, and so I think you had Certisite and Ahern and a couple of other vendors, and they'd all look to be in the same ballpark on cost. So it's a matter of figuring out which one we think really would get to contract terms with and have the confidence in.
And there was some, we met with Santos 2 weeks ago, and there was a number of questions that he had that Matt was able to track down as far as the ability to expand on those systems. We would like to, in the future, add some halon systems in appropriate areas, because right now everything's water.
Yeah.
And
I think some of the stuff I reviewed on it was just identifying what areas we needed to be able to connect to further in the future, and then protect the assets that we have, especially particularly the control room area. That's kind of the main area in the jail, and then on top of that, the server area where we maintain all of your terabytes and all those storage for the units for the camera systems.
Yeah, that's a project I would like to see us pull up and move forward on, getting pretty serious about it, because you know, we have a pretty significant operation over there, and all this technology is critical to our ability to serve and maintain it.
I think once we get through the accurate controls project with the door controls, light controls, so on and so forth, and then the panel that we're dealing with today, I think the next thing on the block will be expanding that system into total package, if you will, to cover those other areas.
So one of the things I was reviewing on the documents was the warranty that they had. One of them obviously significantly more than the other, but basically they provide the same type of units between the Honeywell Firelight and then the Silent Night. And I wasn't sure if that was limited 3-year differences on just labor, or what was the other difference that the other one had of limited as well, but 1 year. I mean, are they the same type of hardware?
The 3-year limited warranty, the factory limited warranty on the Honeywell Firelight, that was reported to me by the Certisite salesperson, and the 1-year limited warranty was reported to me by the Ahern's sales representative. Those are not in writing, and that's one of the things Jim Berry's helped me out a lot with is going over the contract, and, you know, a portion of that contract is we want some representation in that matter if we have products fail. And that's something that we want wrote in the contract, to have that put in writing, basically. Right now, I've got a lot of verbal from them, but
Yeah. So,
They had basically, they give you a manufacturer's warranty, whatever that is. So if you've got 100 components, you could technically have 100 different warranties of different durations. And so they warrant, the only warranty we get on any of them is with the equipment, and so we wanna try to understand what those warranties are more specifically, figure out, if there's gonna be any buy-in from them in terms of service and responsibility, and then what we can do to improve any of those positions is kind of the conversation.
yeah, and I think
Nancy and I had.
that's my biggest challenge. I mean, a lot of what we're doing here is basically because we're not getting good customer service for where we're at. I mean, products are failing and ultimately we're not getting the services we need. So when we look at this, you know, it's one thing that when a salesperson comes in and tries to promise us the world because they know they want to get the sale versus somebody that actually has backed up history along other vendors that you guys have reached out to or other, you know, facilities that may have already installed these services, I guess is what I'm getting at. What other references did they come back with? And I think that's my challenge to you guys is identifying, you know, I'm willing to pay more if I know that I'm gonna get the service calls, just like you guys talk about this JJ, I don't know who he is, but are we getting that, you know, hey, we make the phone calls, they're here, they follow up, we get serviced, and we get invoiced, and then boom. That's the kind of, I guess, the question that I would be challenging with who we identify, because that's probably what I would say. I mean, I'm in favor of what we're doing, I think that's the homework I would like to do, is saying, can we make sure that we have verifiable references that identify these people do have follow-up? They're not just promising us the world to try to get the sale.
And I think that's why we're wanting to put it into a contract, and then identify which contract is the most beneficial for the
Correct.
county.
And in a long-term contract, what we've talked about, what we've seen is the concerns about our, you know, is this a 3-year contract at 10 grand per maintenance versus 3-year at 52 grand per year, which is a huge challenge for us.
Right.
Yeah, and I just is thinking about this, cause this will likely be, I don't know if they've given you any kind of duration on this contract too. And if they're just extending manufacturer's warranties, when does the date start? The date they acquire the equipment or the date we are put it into service and turnover? And that's could be 6-month difference or more, I would guess, in a project like this. So, yeah, good.
And there's one of the vendors that we do have quotes from has went ahead and started to acquire the parts and pieces already just to get ahead of the game. Again, we haven't entered into any type of agreement with them at all. They took that on their own accord, so.
Taking their own risk.
So, I'm in favor for it, but are you asking for us just to, you know, give you the okay to get it, and then at the end, you guys will choose which is the best selection from it?
I would ask for your approval to get back both contracts, figure out which one's the most beneficial for us as the county, and then enter into.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to move forward with that request of negotiating a contract mutually acceptable for both.
I'll second it.
Okay, I got a motion by Santos, a second by Jeff. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is maybe a question more for Nancy, a generic. So we have similar system in multiple facilities, correct? We have the old,
Yes, and I think, you know, I don't want to speak too much for Oscar, but I think there's some eager anticipation to see if this works,
Okay.
because there's some concerns. It's the same company, same service issues that we've had,
We have it in the sheriff's office, we have it in the maintenance building.
maintenance.
I was thinking we had that in a couple of buildings, so,
It's all over the city too.
yeah, all of the city too. Yeah.
Yeah.
This discussion's gonna be had in front of the board multiple times.
Yeah, I think that's the other question, is try to have that foresight to say, is this company have the ability to grow for us? I mean, can we possibly give them even more if it turns out to be? So I mean, think about that selection.
Project, it's by far the most extensive, I mean, by,
Yeah, but I mean, if we were to expand into the network more with them and give them 10 more facilities, or if the city were to look out and expand as well too, I think that ideally, that's probably not gonna fall well on the existing vendor, but, you know, at the end of the day, that's where we
What-
need to look at for
What do
our
you do
own.
in conservation, Kurt? At Discovery Center Fire Protection? Remember? Do you remember?
no, I don't.
Okay.
Don't put me on the spot.
But these are, it's probably the issue we need to look at all of our buildings, kind of what we're doing, who's doing what, and if we, find a vendor that,
Ideally, that would be good, because I mean, it's the same thing we keep on trying to push back, try to find some consistency across, helps us from a longevity to have more leverage for contract negotiations, and then also helps us have better reliability on what we're trying to get, so.
improves your service level, generally speaking.
That's what we thought for a while.
You think?
Jail's not the only building, I believe, to have the concerns of water protection, where there's, again, they have way more controls, but I believe we have, servers other places that maybe don't have the best fire protection. It's something we probably want to keep looking at the ability and Oscar thing, but beyond just the service issues that we've had.
Yeah, I think we need to decide where our mission critical head-end equipment is, and what are our failback options, and what's our fire protection strategy on them all.
Yeah, things change over time too with companies and reps and everything. And a person would love to have the situation where you had a constant, but it's always, it still flows. It always flows.
Yeah.
So you're always behind the 8 ball on it just a little bit. So, okay, thank you, everyone. Was there anything other, Sheriff, that you wanted to talk about? Okay, very good, thank you. Next is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the August 15, 2022 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence. Jeff, do you have anything?
Nothing to note.
Nothing? Nathan?
I had some questions about, road work on 180th Street, talked to Keith about it, so all good there.
Okay. I had nothing to note. Santos?
I had some email correspondence that we had from Denise Bulot with the Drainage District 13, the work that they're doing over on the pumps and getting the pump work back in, and then potentially looking at some funding that they need to do to try to help complete that work. Denise is looking at some options that we may possibly have to try to help us get about $110,000. I believe that's the current amount.
Yeah, I didn't know if I read that over the weekend, if that was, require the federal, procedures and policies to
Yeah.
be adopted, which would be pre-project, so I'm not sure this one will
And-
end up qualifying, but
and
it's
I-
certainly in the future,
Yeah.
it's another path to look at in terms of some funding that might be beneficial for the drainage district, and so Denise was.
Yeah, I replied back to her asking her to give us the direction, keep us in the federal guidelines as far as what, which way to stay in the rails and the lanes on that, but that was what I had from that. Then I also had an email and forwarded that to Nancy in regards to the city's request to help in the new potential bridge that they're wanting to build over there on Dick Drake Way, and believe that we try to get a rendering of what that is. Had a couple of emails back with the city engineer in regards to that as well too, how they're proposing that to be, and they're looking for us to try to help advocate for it or try to get a letter of recommendations for that. It's not something that's been approved. There's still a lot of dollars that would need to come into effect with that. However, what they're trying to do is help try to get enough groups within the county to support it, and then try to see if we can actually get that bridge built to go over Dick Drake Way. And that is all I have for correspondence.
Okay. Doug?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Committee reports, Jeff, you have anything?
On the 15th, we had the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Region in Davenport. You'll see we're gonna talk about the 2080 here in a little bit. Nancy and her team kind of went through that. So that's basically this is, I'll call it the administrative minutia we're adding to, so we can properly get reimbursed for our staff times and et cetera for I think the original plan, that wouldn't meet code, so now we've gotta do something, so been a lot of work, and Nancy and her team have been working with the David Farmer and his group, and I appreciate them doing that. On the 18th, I had the State Mental Health and Disability Services Commission meeting in Des Moines, a really interesting meeting. Couple of things happening. You probably all have heard that the Health and Human, it's now the State Department of Health and Human Services, so it has IDPH and, I don't know, they merged a couple of state departments to more reflect kind of typically like what you see at the federal level. So that transition is underway, done, they're well into that. The other thing, and probably most notable thing, was they went through the 988 rollout, and I don't know how many people are familiar with that. You remember there used to be, 1-800 bets off and all the helplines that the state of Iowa operated. So they've, then they created Your Life Iowa, where they rolled a lot of that in, and it's mental health help and all that. Now they're coming out, and I think this is a national effort actually, and it's gonna be 988, kind of like the 911 3-digit dialing, so it'll be for a crisis. It's a crisis line, so anybody in crisis or believes or knows somebody, and they'll dial 988 and be connected to crisis counselors and who can dispatch resources. So that's rolled out already, so you'll start hearing 988 more often and see more of that. Just a little note that the crisis hotline in Iowa, prior to that, they would see about 10 or 12,000 calls a month. Now that 988 is rolled out and they're pulling all that in, they're exceeding 40,000 and growing at about a 30% rate. So be interesting, and they'll dispatch. I know Chris Jasper, they mentioned he'd been working with them when I was out in Des Moines, and it was a great resource, so that was good to hear our folks are involved. But how do they integrate that with 911 centers, and how do you dispatch? Because a lot of this technology is dispatching based on area code, and with cellular phones and voice over IP now, area code is not a reliable way, so it's adding a lot of challenges to some of these services and the 911 and dispatch center. So, but anyway, that's going really very interesting meeting, lots of stuff presented, but I'll try to there were a couple of interesting presentations. I'll see if I can get copies and forward them to the board. You might be interested, and that's it.
Okay. Nathan?
See, on the 16th, we had the Veterans Affairs Commission. We didn't have an official quorum, unfortunately, because we've got some transition in membership, but we did have some good discussion, and have a new individual proposed for you guys to look at and possibly appoint today.
Okay. On the 17th, I had Riverbend Transit, and that's all that I had. Santos?
On the 16th, I had the Trails Committee meeting. And we're talking about the new, obviously there's a lot of work going on over on Grandview Street, but the 2023, 2024, they're gonna be putting a new pipe that goes in for an alternative sewer system line. And it'll be going up underneath Oregon Street over by underneath the rail. So they'll do like a directional bore, but they'll end up putting a concrete support underneath that to go underneath the rail, and then that'll end up going to the new to the trail that goes around. I don't even know, the old Dollar General, right around through there, and then go back into the back. That'll connect back into the old trail. That's all I have for committee reports.
Okay. Doug, do you have anything?
The 17th at noon was Wilton Development. And then on August 18th at 8 o'clock was Fair Board. August 20th, we raced. We had time trials for the super lates, a couple heat races and a downpour. So they pulled the plug on that one, and we'll have a date coming up here shortly we had 29 super late models there, so it would have been good. We'll see if we can get back on tour and do one more race. This Saturday, August 27th, is Donovan's Sale, the Eastern Iowa Auction. starts at 8:30 at the fairgrounds Saturday. And then September 24th, they announced the monster trucks are coming to
Oh, really?
fairgrounds, yes.
Well, that'd be cool.
So,
That could be interesting.
it could be,
That'd
This will
fun
be
to
the
watch.
first time, won't it? Have we had monster trucks?
yes,
Oh, yeah,
yep, it'll be the first.
that's very good.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you much. Next is items with the administration office. First is discussion and possible action to approve and authorize the chair to sign a revised memorandum of understanding for reimbursement from the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Disability Services Region for county employees.
This, basically, the change in this takes us from, we did have it arranged that we were gonna submit our expenses to the region and get reimbursed quarterly. The state said, no, you can't do that because you're basically upfronting costs with general fund dollars. So this changes it that they gave us an upfront payment and then they're gonna pay us each month based on what we submit. So we should, in theory, always have dollars, mental health dollars in the coffer to cover our payroll and such for the employees that are affected.
Okay, very good.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to approve and authorize the chair to sign the second amended intergovernmental 2080 agreement for Eastern Iowa Mental Health Disability Services Region.
And this is just a little cleanup of some areas in terms of, I believe there's some changes to the voting procedure, maybe to the membership.
Okay.
So moved.
I've got a motion.
Second.
Motion by Nathan, a second by Jeff. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action authorizing the chair to sign a letter of support for the city of Muscatine's application for a railroad crossing elimination program grant. And that's the grant you were speaking
Yeah,
of.
we just talked about that, yeah, and I believe you guys saw a little picture of what it looks like. It's pretty unique. It's kind of what they're trying to come up with, and I think it'll be good for that area. I think it'll end up probably getting a lot more traffic in that area if we end up doing
Yeah,
it just with the
didn't I hear they're talking about like a train an hour is kind of the estimate.
Well,
That area gets bottlenecked quite frequently.
it does, and with, just with the current flow of rail traffic and so on, you can end up with a substantial amount of truck traffic backed up, towards 61, from the rail.
It's always the concern with all the activity down there is the ability for first responders to get in and out if there were any
Mhm.
kind of accident or emergency.
I think it's a good positive for us right alongside there. I mean,
So I'll move the
borders right there.
approval then.
I got a motion by Jeff. Did I have a second? Second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action authorizing chair to sign a joint letter with Scott and Clinton counties regarding the proposed acquisition of the Kansas City Southern by the Canadian Pacific Railway Limited.
I was approached by the Scott County Board, chaired, well, not chaired, by Ken Beck for us to consider this. So they're gonna put in a letter of opposition to the Surface Transportation Board on this. And I don't know if everyone read the letter. I think it was really well thought out. There's a lot of salient points. I've been a little bit disappointed in this process to this point, in that the counties have been pretty much on the fringe. All the cities, I know Bettendorf, Davenport, and even Muscatine have been in negotiations with the railroad, with the CP about what it might relay, what it may look like to do this. I just took a quick count. Somewhere around 37 crossings in Muscatine County of that rail line. And I'm gonna say I didn't count how many I would consider controlled crossings and how many in incorporated townships, but certainly the bulk of them are in the unincorporated. And I think that, I think I share the concern of the Scott County Board. If you look along the river and all the properties with the pedestrian traffic and people coming over and across those, I worry with a lot of train activity, and I don't know the speeds and all that, we just don't know much about it, what the potential impact of that might be.
So-
We have a couple of campgrounds, there's just a lot of stuff there, and if you start having significant rail traffic, I share their concerns.
But I mean, the proposed increase of traffic is also gonna help logistics for businesses to get their products. I mean, so I challenge the thought process of just saying, well, this is gonna hurt us. I mean, in reality, think about the existing businesses that need those.
Yeah,
Ours.
I spoke with others as well, and, to me, it's kind of a double-edged sword, in reality, I think it's gonna happen, but I think, I don't know that I would say I don't really oppose it, but I think that they thought a lot about the cities, but they haven't thought a lot about the rural taxpayer. That's what I would think about, the rural property owner, the rural user, of amenities, and, what you could do, maybe there's nothing you could do.
Who's responsible for the serial delays and blockages down by Fruitland? Is that CP? Does anybody know?
No, I wouldn't know that.
Okay. Is that are those main lines, are those trunk lines off to specific businesses? What's going on there? 'Cause anybody know? I just don't feel like we have got all this information. I'm not prepared to condemn something that I don't know enough about. I mean, what have the businesses in town said? Have we had any conversations with them?
Yeah, I think actually I have, and I think they've all said, selfishly, they like it because it opens market opportunities for
Sure.
them. And I think that's really, an opportunity, and I think I'd hate to see them not have that opportunity. But then again, I think, it just goes to your point is, this has all been kind of, from a county perspective, it's been pretty quiet. I don't know that we've seen, Senator Lofgren sent some stuff that I saw, but it was, nothing really came to us as a board. We didn't receive any communication, did we, Nancy? And I think, Brian, you guys didn't get anything in our county engineer's office, and I would think that would be just a general courtesy.
Well, so to me, and I just read about it, was it Davenport getting $20 million, something like that? Muscatine.
I think 13 in Davenport and 8 or 7 or 8 in
Okay,
Bettendorf.
okay. And then Muscatine, the city took 3.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want a payoff. I'm not saying that at all. But are we just peeing up somebody's leg by this? And do we do any? Is this just kind of spitting in the wind? And is there some benefit we can realize from for the Muscatine County taxpayer? Perhaps, more support for greater protection at the crossings if we think this is an inevitability. I'd like to hear more from CP, and maybe they say we're not telling you anymore. Maybe, but I'd like to rather see us write to them directly, say what the heck's going on, guys? You haven't talked to us. Tell us what you want to tell us, or don't tell us anything. But at least I'd like to hear more before I say yay or nay to something that could have huge ramifications and may or may not have our action may or may not have any impact at all.
It depends on where you're at, on if it negatively impacts you, if you happen to live, on the river edge, let's say, you're gonna be negatively impacted. If you're gonna be an industry or a business operation that, financially, has some, positives there, I'm sure you're gonna be in full favor of it. One of the things that I've thought about on this, when this letter came to be, is not even in this county, it's actually in Scott County, up at Cargill and up the cement plant, and what it's gonna take, the amount of traffic hauling grain into Cargill up there. Now granted, 22 is a 4-lane highway, and if they stack those trucks up, they'll be stacked on the shoulders. I see it, with all this train traffic. That just seems like a negative situation. All the cement tankers coming out of the cement plant up there, is gonna be a bit of an issue as well. Those are just things I think about. I'm sure we have some of the same here in Muscatine County. I think about all the, camping sites up and down the river, of the amount of train traffic of vehicles pulling, 35-foot campers trying to get into the campgrounds. There again, they don't have the luxury of 4-lane highways. Quite frankly, I'm afraid we're gonna have traffic stopped at certain times on the highway from that volume. I mean, it just, the more trains you have, obviously, it's just a relationship of minutes in the day of how long, percentage-wise, that's blocked. And there's gonna be some problems, there's gonna be some issues. But I don't know what all the positive aspects of this are either. And I'm with Nathan in regard to, I would like to have just a little more information. And I'm not against this, but things are gonna just be different. And there's gonna be some new challenges.
And like the campgrounds, those are all operated by the state, right?
And the feds.
The Corps.
State
And,
2-4.
and then Scott County has one too.
Yeah, and so let's say, but I could clearly see, because you can even see when you get heavy boat ramp traffic, when it gets busy up there, on the 22 side, where would they put the, you're gonna need some, reserve lanes or something, 'cause you don't wanna block 22 cause that's a fairly busy road too. Yeah.
It's gonna take some future thinking on this, on what we don't even realize what the new problems are gonna be. We can sit here and talk about it, but we don't even realize it.
Those are the water emergency rescue, low ramps for everything above the lock and dam as well. Those 3 campgrounds, and there can be delays. I mean, it would've been nice to see, like, on an average, what the number of trains that go through, what's the average time that it takes for them to clear each one of those crossings, and now what will be the total time in a 24-hour period that they're blocked, and see what that extrapolates to, because those are the sites the water rescue has to access from above the lock and dam, all the way up there.
Now, what percentage of a 24-hour day potentially will that be blocked?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be more than what you think when you're running 20 trains through there.
Yeah, so I think that, I'm kinda, you guys are kinda the way I felt about with this one, Ken talked to me, is like, I don't know enough to know whether I support it or don't support it. But on the general, I support it because I think it'd be good for our local economy.
I do too.
But I see I think there's some areas that they're not thinking about. And what are the solutions to those, or the potential solutions? Or if it becomes an issue, how do we resolve that issue? Because the railroads they don't have a rich history of working with us.
Well, the railroads are very powerful, and that's fine. But, and I'd like to see this freight growth go through and utilize this, but it's gonna create more challenges than we even know. Way more than I've ever even thought about, because there's things that I haven't even thought about yet.
Well, exercise, yeah, go ahead.
But the homeowner is really gonna be challenged that lives on, the river's edge side of the tracks per se, in, taking and utilizing their time on just day-to-day life of going to work and getting home from work and going here, going there, because there's gonna be a substantial amount of time that homeowner cannot make that crossing.
So most of the properties on the riverside are at least like recreational, except for Montpelier, right?
Probably the majority of them until you get up, right, east of Montpelier, there's probably a few that are houses that are approved years ago for that.
Or they're just residents.
Majority, but as we know, seasonal recreational cottages
Yeah.
have overtime to go, full-time to go.
Right.
That's just the reality. Yeah, Fairport has dwellings on the riverside of the tracks.
Yeah.
But
Fair number.
you get up into Scott County with this, and there's substantially more year-round homes, you know, and I'm sure when these homes were bought and built, I mean, nobody dreamt that they'd be running this potential volume of traffic, but, you know,
And I don't know how certain the traffic volume is. Is there a concrete plan? I'm guessing, you know, the Kansas City Southern, because I don't think the CP, they don't extend much beyond Iowa, I don't think today. And I think this probably opens up a significant amount of the southern US to their, for markets for Canadian products as well.
yeah, but, you know, no one knows where this market's gonna go for them when this transit, that's all liquid as well, on what opportunities come for them. So, yeah, there's a lot of unknown out there. The only thing that you know for sure is that there will be a higher volume of train traffic. That's what you know, and that there will be issues and there will be problems to be solved along with that. That'll cost probably some substantial dollars to remedy.
So what I hear, and so what I think I hear on this is, we're not really prepared to, this is really a letter of opposition, and I don't think I'm prepared to oppose it.
I'm not.
But,
I'm not gonna oppose it.
but if they would consider a rephrase of the letter to be a letter of concern, for additional input on these areas, you know, what are your thoughts?
I mean, what the reality is, I mean, basically, Canadian Pacific is being bought out by, or Kansas City Southern is being bought out by Canadian Pacific. Yeah, so, I mean, okay.
Yep.
So, you're gonna have any acquisition that I've ever been a part of, it takes time to go through the logistics of how they operate, ultimately end up putting in their system that they need to figure out which is better for themselves. And then I'm sure that they've already had discussions on some of those things, but some of these problems, we haven't even got to that bridge yet.
Yeah.
And I think I'm more wanting to share that we wanna hear possibly how are they going to address potential logistics and challenges that we have in our community, and to help us, you know, have a better, you know, maybe cooperation or some sort of, you know, conversation on how they propose addressing some of those things. I think that's what I would be wanting to get from that, because for me to just say, hey, you guys are gonna bring a lot more logistics, probably gonna be cheaper for our existing businesses instead of trucks and other mobile ways of getting products here, and it'll help our operations and in our community grow. That's what I want. But logistically, you're right. If there's now 4 hours of a train every 10 hours versus every hour, every 10 hours, I mean, that's a difference of a lot of time in backed up units. So how do they do that? Do they, you know, make sure that they always have an opening every half hour, or, and I think CP has some sort of a, you know, that's how they address some of those things over on the south side of town. How there was something that they shared that, hey, we have to have it open every so many minutes. There is some sort of process. I don't know it exactly, but I think if they provide some of that data, that would be helpful for us.
Yeah.
But for now, I cannot oppose that. The way it's worded, I'm not gonna support it.
I mean, yeah, they just want us to sign a blank check before.
To me, that's the way that they're reading it, and I struggle with their wording on it, because everything they're talking about is that, but what about all those businesses that provide jobs for those people that live in those areas?
Right.
You know, how do they propose that they do that when they say, hey, we're just not gonna propose that? And in the defense of Ken and them, they probably just don't have that data yet, because I don't think they've reached that bridge yet. So they don't know for themselves either.
Well, my guess is they've got a pretty good idea, but we don't know it.
Well,
I think they're
well,
probably,
I
they
just-
probably
I don't.
talked at a different level. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Lofgren had more information than I'd seen from anybody else. And you know, again, at the state level, but you know, it's like, okay, are you not sharing it with your local communities so they have a chance to look at it and understand what their concerns are?
I would just either propose you take it back and reword it, or
If
table it.
that's okay, if that's, is that what you,
I think you've had a good point there, and that we have some concerns. Because, I'm not against this merger and this added traffic, but there's a lot of things that need to be, discussed and, there's more learning here for me.
Well, if it's consensus of the group, I'll reach out to Ken and tell him, as written, we would not support it. But, if it were to be rewritten to put them as concerns that we'd like to, have more dialogue on, how, then I think that's something we would support.
I don't disagree with that, but I would also ask that we reach out to whomever, spoke with the cities, saying, give us information, tell us why we should, or, what this does for the people of Muscatine County.
Yeah, I saw a couple of names on a letter that I've never seen before,
Yeah.
so it's like, well, where did you get those? Cause we've been totally in the dark on this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll reach out and then I'll get back to everybody, I'll let you know.
okay. So there'll be no action taken there. And we'll move forward. Next is action to accept Keith White's resignation from the Veterans Affairs Commission effective immediately. Okay,
Well, I wanna thank Keith for his time served. I appreciate all the work he's done on that board, and thank you for your service. I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second, and I echo Santos's comments.
motion by Santos, second by Jeff. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Keith. Next is action to appoint Shane Sawyer to the Veterans Affairs Commission for an unfulfilled term ending June 30, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I would just say, we at the Veterans Affairs Commission reviewed this application. It was the only one received, but it looked like an extremely solid candidate, and we appreciate his willingness to serve.
I read it as well, and I concur with that. Next up is action to appoint Sioux Hills to the Muscatine County Historic Preservation Commission for an unfulfilled term ending December 31, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nathan, second by Jeff. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Anything else, Nancy?
Nope, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Next is receive information from county employees. Brian, you have
Good morning.
something to add?
I'd like to give an update on some secondary road projects. The 171st Street paving job is nearing completion. Last week they worked on punch list items. As far as the travel way, it's very close. Right now we're pretty much waiting on some pavement markings. So hopefully, depends on weather and contractor schedule, but really hoping that this week that project can get wrapped up.
So when would we open it?
It'll most likely be shortly after getting pavement markings.
Okay. Good.
There will be some other items, like there's some fencing and some erosion control that is off the travel way that they can.
I didn't know if you need more cure time or anything
Nope,
like that.
we're good to go for all that.
Okay.
Our maintenance pavement markings project contractor, which is Advanced Traffic Control, they were on site last week. They're slowly working their way from east side of the county to the west side of the county. They'll be out this week as well. Our local microsurfacing project, which is Fort Dodge Asphalt, we have a pre-con scheduled for tomorrow. They hope to be here either late this week or early next week to start that project. Then also our maintenance overlay, asphalt overlay project, which is Manats. We just got word that they plan to not be here till the end of September, which is a few weeks after the late start date. So they plan on eating some days. I know that they're very busy and wrapped up on some other projects. So hopefully we can get them here sooner than that. But that's what they're currently telling us. So. I also want to talk about our crews. So Friday night, kind of had a really localized heavy rains over kind of between like Conesville and Cranston. Had some washouts and stuff on our gravel roads. It was really, really localized to like Echo and Everett. So we had some crews out, some employees out Saturday morning, just putting up signage, and we had a motor grader out, just making sure we had some type of access. And then they're out there today, hauling rock and fixing things up. So
They had 6 to 7 inches out there, they said.
I've heard
That
numbers
storm
like that.
built here forever and ever. It was sitting over that area, just dumping that whole time.
Yeah, I heard that it sat, stalled out over Conesville, basically, and
Yep,
I didn't realize
Dredged
that.
a lot of water.
That's what I got for an update.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Brian, real quick, do we have a floor sweeper in the county?
I'm sorry, what?
A floor sweeper, like a truck that drives down the.
He's pretty good with a broom.
No.
This is military
Like a
experience.
street,
You've
like a
seen one?
street- Like a street sweeper, like a
like
rotary
rock.
type.
Our pavement marking contractor's using one to prep the lines for their paint. So
Okay.
if you've seen one, that's
Yeah,
that's
but I
probably
wasn't
whose
sure if it
is.
was ours or if we
No.
own one or anything like
Nope,
that,
it's not
especially when I was
ours.
thinking about going over into the deep lakes and just some of the roads in through there. I was just wondering, or even, do we own one to ever clean those streets up or anything like that, or do we rent
we
one?
don't own a street sweeper style. We own a broom that goes on the end of an end loader that we use when we're doing like shouldering stuff to clean
Yep.
up the road.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Do I have other county employees who wish to address the board?
Some numbers, you guys had asked last week, and tried to come up with some new numbers. He came in at the last minute. I was gone this weekend, and he sent them to me on Sunday, so we'll still wanna have a little time to, go over them, digest them, yeah. Some sticker shock. But these are put together by Adrian Holmes with Bolton Mink. We've always had good luck with him on numbers on any of our other road projects and cabin projects and all that, so I'm fairly confident in him. I would like to,
And so this was the one that went over, what, 41st Street or something like that?
right, yeah.
That's the one that's
We give
new.
the original route, and I go through this, the original route, he is showing the sewer line much less than what was estimated. The water went up a little bit, but overall, that cost went down quite a bit, down $661,000 less going that route. We talked about the west route, going, running along 41st Street, run into several issues there when I met with the city that didn't know ahead of time. One is the sewer line coming down along the railroad tracks is a force main. I learned more about sewers than I ever wanted to know, but, and so that's under pressure. First of all, I'm not sure the city even wants us to go that way or would even allow us to do that, because they have concerns on tapping in to a pressurized pipe. But if you did go that way, we would also have to have our whole pipe pressurized, and so it's gonna be much, much more high maintenance on our end to do that. The second issue that raised up is there is no water running down alongside that railroad track. It runs down along the west side of Highway 61. So not only do we have almost another, half a mile to get over the 61, we also then have to run it all the way under the 4 lanes of Highway 61, which really brought those costs up. And we still are, and I'll mention again, we're still looking at 3-inch sewer lines and 8-inch water lines. So, some of this concern, well, are they gonna require other people to tap on? Really, the 3-inch sewer line is for our use. It's not large enough for, other people to be tapping on.
And the 3-inch was sized for approximately
75
75.
campsites and then some more cabins as well.
So the original numbers, are those updated based on new projections, or those just the original figures that we had? Because I imagine they would have gone up by now, right?
I had added the original ones, they're the old cost estimates, the 2,151,000. I had added 10% onto those, and that's how we come up with that. Well, this is all re-estimated by Bolton Mink,
Got it.
those numbers up at the top. And that's what he feels like the current pricing would be if we would run it
Sounds good, thank you.
today.
Concerns I have are, do we have enough area down Pettibone there to run sewer and water both and have the necessary distance between? Obviously, tremendous amount of the way is gonna be fine, but there's some places that look a little tight to me.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, you know, it's something we could have Bolton Mink look into closer. I'm sure he's just doing everything, you know, from maps right now, aerial photos, getting us the distance and cost estimate and that. You know, I'm sure he doesn't have
And
all that information at this time, that what is underneath the ground in those areas.
has there been any discussion with Power and Water in regard to the water issue, any type of sharing or any type of anything there?
Nothing on my part, because I
Okay.
didn't feel that, you
Uh-huh.
know, unless I'm directed, I didn't feel that was.
No, I get it. I
Position
just,
to do that.
I'm just throwing it out for conversation if there's
And
been
have
any
we heard
discussion
any
there.
more from Power and Water about, you know, I know they were talking with Louisa County at one point, Wapello and
They
those
said-
areas. Have we heard any more on that?
Yeah, I talked to them over last week. They're still on hold on that. They told me that, I mean, their discussion, they're trying to get, I can't remember the Louisa County supervisor, that's been involved with them, to get more support between their board to try to get that approved, but nothing concrete yet. And even if they do that, that's still running down Isley's Hill, kind of running through over on the main 61. So technically, really wouldn't even have an effect on this
Right.
case if you really look at it. But I mean, one of the questions I have on this is: are they directionally boring that? Do you know?
I just believe they're directionally boring what goes under the railroad tracks. Cause those he was talking about, how they had to have, especially the one going across 41st Street is a much longer spans because it's an active track where those other tracks come down Pettibone or not. And so I was thinking it was required, like for the sewer and the water required a 10-inch
It's just-
piping, and then their piping to go inside of that.
When he's saying trenchless, I think that's what I was getting confused. Because I
Oh.
think that's what I mean. That
He's got a 175 feet of bore somewhere.
yeah, he's got 175 feet there,
He's got,
Um,
yeah, a couple of the sanitary sewer and that.
and then trenched on the other one, which is like another.
Majority of the water is actually trenched.
That's the way I read it.
What's that?
Looks like the majority of the water is trenched, with a very small portion being trenchless.
Oh, yeah.
Assume would be bored.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see that now. I just saw that
6,000
trenchless, it
feet versus-
jumped out at me.
6,000 feet of trench and 175 of bore.
Okay,
So he's probably going under
That's,
something.
that's going under Highway 61 the one way and the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
But I could get more information if there's, you know, and I need to have time to go through it too, because like I said, I came to at 8 o'clock this morning, but I thought I'd get you numbers as quick as I could, because I
yeah,
need
no,
to
this
have
is
We
those.
good.
appreciate
This
that.
is good. So, I mean, so let me ask this then. So then, if we were to just move forward with the sewer and not the water, we technically would need to dig our own well
That's correct.
and provide our own water maintenance and
Right,
training.
then
We'd
have
be a
to go-
public water supply
We'd
then.
go under public water supply and be under what the DNR would require us, and I'm sure it'd be.
Yeah. So when they came up with the 8-inch, I mean, that's for the amount of water they're thinking, or where did we come up with, why such a big line?
The 8-inch was because we are a dead end. And they said because of that, I forget, you read that too, and,
That's the minimum that they'll allow. It also includes, you know, hydrant space, they may.
Who will allow? Oh, MPW will allow?
MPW,
Yeah, every 900 feet versus their normal requirement every 300. With some emails that Kurt had that he forwarded to me, there's some expectation of additional businesses being able to tap onto that, because the comments from one engineer was, if and when someone else accessed that water line, they would require hydrants closer. So there is, you know, there is an added potential economic development.
Yeah.
Coming from 41st, there's a large amount of ground that's owned heavy industrial that would have water passing in front of it, which is some of you are aware, becomes very important when the industry goes up and sprinkler is involved for those buildings, there is city water there. My concern is in partnering, you know, are we really partnering with in picking winners and losers? These landowners are gonna see a potential increased value of those parcels of land. Not necessarily a bad thing, because we've got some infrastructure, you know, installed that industry needs, quite
Yeah.
frankly, with today's codes. But
I just don't understand where they come up with that 8-inch, but,
that's their minimum when they're dead ending.
cause I know that they run 6 inches and I thought they even had 4, but
but I think those are on loops though. And then he specifically said that in that estimate that he gave, that, you know, because it's dead ending, that's the minimum that they would allow.
What'd you put in, Keith, an 8?
well, and I think the other piece, me thinking, you know, from what that is if there is a desire to go with the water, I think that's a conversation that we should have with MPW in regards to potentially looking at helping out on some of those.
And not to mention the
Cost,
city, if
that's
we
all.
hand them this big fatty chunk of infrastructure
Well,
that they're gonna be able to charge on later, you know, I think that they should probably either
yeah, but
bear some of the cost or play ball with hooking up to the force main if we
And-
figured that worked.
and I'm not saying that they're not. I mean, we
Normally.
just haven't had the conversation yet, nor have we even said that this is what we're all completely on board with.
You know, if these are ARPA funds, which, you know, technically came from the federal government, all taxpayers. You know, if we can provide good water, quality water to more residents, I'm okay with it. I don't, you know,
But at the same
it's
time.
all
aren't we-
government paid for, we're all paying for
We're
it.
creating annexation bait too, aren't we?
Potentially, yeah, but you know, I mean, that's, as a, you know, property owners, you know, that's a risk you always understand, right? That you're always annexation bait, you know, the city's gonna continue to grow and creep out as it becomes to their advantage.
And it creates more value.
It creates
It
more,
does.
it does add value to a landowner too, yeah.
Right.
I mean, everybody says, oh, the taxes, like, if you actually break down the taxes and the costs, you know, living in a city, it's not that significantly different. You have other costs that wind up costing you. It's really more about the use of your land and what amenities you want and don't want.
I'd be curious to know what the difference is to run, to Santos' point, on those water line sizes, you know, the difference in cost to run an 8-inch compared to a 6 or a 4. Many times the cost is, for example, a 4 wouldn't be half that money,
No.
you know, it wouldn't be
It's
half
not
that
gonna
money.
scale linear.
No, it's,
It would be, it costs just a little bit more money to
pipe is
run an
cheap.
8
It's
the
instead.
pipe, it is the
the
pipe, the
digging.
pipe is cheap, it's just the
Right,
excavation.
it's the whole process.
It's just my mentality is thinking, why so big if, you know, if we're only needing a 3 for the sewer, you know, but, you know,
No,
that's a different conversation and
Right.
just where my thoughts are going on some of that, but I think that's why there's value in us having that discussion with MPW if they want us to
couldn't
do
agree
that.
more.
And I think there's also, some more discussion about, do we wanna do that in-house, knowing what we're doing? I completely support the sewer, I just think there should be some more conversation on the waters, in my opinion. Thank you.
So I guess my question to you is, where do you wanna go from here? I mean, I'm assuming you're not gonna make a decision about ARPA designations until,
Do we even have that much on that 1.5?
Well, we have a total of 4.
Oh, I know, but I mean, I thought we had already allocated some.
Well, we haven't, you haven't allocated anything yet.
Okay.
We've just had some discussions
discussion.
about what you would wanna do.
We had talked about the 2.1 from the last, right? That's what we were in with on your original, so that's what so this is actually, looking like a lower amount, 600,000 less than we thought. So,
Yep,
if we were to go ahead with it. And I think that, so the question is campgrounds or no campgrounds, cause I think, for all practical purposes, if you don't bring water, you're probably not gonna get it done.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that the hoops that we'd have to go through, you start talking about, what kind of staffing we'd have to increase at the conservation to deal with the public water supply now.
It would just take a tremendous amount of work, and to take care of and maintain a private water supply that it would be a negative gift that keeps giving. It would cost every day,
certainly an increase in potential liability.
right? But
Currently, we
I
have
would-
our own wells already out there.
Hmm?
I mean, currently, we have our own wells already out there.
But we're not to the scale, I think.
Not to the scale, no,
Right.
not yet. But what I'm getting at is just saying, just be correct. We do have one already there.
But we don't have the same regulatory burden, correct? Or
No,
is there?
until we build that is my
Right, so-
thought process.
I mean, I'm not so much concerned about the well as the burden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
I mean, and, I like this project, I think it's a fine idea, but in my mind, if it's too hard, we got other worthy things we can spend money on. And, so I think we should keep those in mind as well.
So are you ready for me to put back on the agenda the ARPA discussion and work with this assumption of numbers and work through a final determination of how you wanna allocate those funds? We kinda put it on hold, waiting.
I would
on this.
like to hear what MPW position is on this.
Yeah, give me a week. Let me talk.
Tell me what
Okay.
tell me what the position is, and I'll be able to make a decision from there very quickly.
Very fair.
Alright,
You
so
talk
I
to
will wait
Ryan.
and put it, so,
I'll talk to Gage and Brian both.
2 weeks from today is Labor Day, so we won't have a meeting. So I'll put it back, that discussion back on for the week after Labor Day, that second week in September.
Yep. And we'll finalize.
About being out of town, I might be out of town.
If
Go ahead,
Jeff's
put
not
it on
out of
there.
town.
Yeah, put it on there.
Well, I think we
I can
need
call
to try
it.
to have all 5 board members involved in that discussion, most definitely.
So that'll be, September?
Well, so how about this? If I can schedule something in between the end of this week,
We
I'll
can
pull
put it
you
up
in,
for-
we can go do that, and then we'll have it done
Okay,
this week.
I'll just wait to hear back from you then.
We try to have some conversations with them.
Yeah,
Good call.
Alright,
because all they have to do is tell you what their position is.
Oh, I know, but I think there still should be some help with leverage or something, kind of identifying that and have those conversations with the city as well too, because I'd like to move forward with an MOU as well. It'd be nice to have something like that, at least saying what we're doing, especially the sewer. Not so much concerned if we end up getting water, that's fine,
I
but
would think we should have a development agreement on both of them.
well, that's probably where you can start helping, having those conversations as well too. Right now, I think it's just get the ball rolling, but this helps us with the numbers, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Kurt. Any other county employees wish to address the board?
I'll just give you an update. I did finally get word from IEDA, that we got a release of funds for the CDBG dollars. It's been a long time coming, but we did get that, so we're
Good.
going to be able to proceed with attempting to acquire one additional house in the floodplain, as well as submit claim for the local share that we spent on the entry since we've been get reimbursed hopefully for that, so.
And the home we purchased in the floodplain, that included a demolition in the project, right? Correct?
We've not purchased it yet.
But if you get the funds, the project included
Yes.
demolition,
Demolition, green space conversion, closing costs, environmental assessment.
so another pocket park for conservation. We're starting a new term.
Why do you say
This one will require, it's a very small parcel of land on the south side of Highway 22 out by Pike Run. interested in it. There's not a lot of usable space there for conservation, but I
Yeah.
guess you could make that decision. But it'd be like some of the other ones that we own that conservation doesn't do anything with. We just every 5 years we go look at them and certify that there's still green space and not being, there's been no infrastructure or development on them.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Next is receive comments from the public. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to address the board at time? Seeing no one, it is 11 minutes after 10, and we are adjourned.